What's good, my vault dwellers? It is me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoilers Show, y'all. Episode 1 of Fallout Season 2 was a wild return to the wasteland that ended with a trailer showcasing what is next for this season. So you already know that Heavy Spoilers has got you with a breakdown of what's coming up next. So grab some Sugar Bomb cereal and let's break this thing on down, shall we? The trailer starts Iron Man style by giving us an inside the helmet view of some Brotherhood of Steel power armor. And since this show is extremely accurate to the Fallout games, the heads-up display inside of this helmet appears to have the same meters that Fallout 4 players see when operating power armor. When mowing down enemies in the game, players in power armor are supposed to monitor the suit's hit point meter or HP meter, their rad meter, which calculates how much radiation the power suit is exposed to, a core meter, which tells the player how much energy is left in the power armor's fusion core, which powers the suit, and an action point meter that shows how many points the player has to perform certain actions. And although actor Aaron Moten's Maximus character was completely absent in episode 1, it seems to be implied that he is the one inside of this power armor while gunning a ghoul down inside of what looks to be the Hoover Dam. In the Fallout games, the Hoover Dam managed to survive the nuclear apocalypse and still stands as a hydroelectric powerhouse in the Mojave wasteland, supplying vital electricity to New Vegas and the new California Republic. And the main reason it survived was thanks to Rob co-founder Robert House, who utilized his anti-air weaponry to defend New Vegas and the Hoover Dam from incoming nuclear warheads. In 2274, the new California Republic would find the Hoover Dam and make a treaty with Mr. House to distribute the dam's power to both the colonies of the new California Republic as well as Mr. House's New Vegas. However, 3 years later in 2277, the NCR's Hoover Dam would be attacked by a faction of wastelanders called Caesar's Legion, who we see later on in the trailer. And they were basically just a group of nut jobs that dressed up like they were from the ancient Roman Empire times and sought to conquer all those around them like they did in the old days. And luckily for the new California Republic, they would successfully defend the dam from Caesar's Legion during the first Battle of Hoover Dam. However, a second Battle of Hoover Dam would break out 4 years after that in 2281 during the events of the Fallout New Vegas video game, with the outcome of that battle being entirely dependent on whether or not the player chooses to side with the new California Republic, Caesar's Legion, or Robert House and New Vegas. However, Caesar's Legion was not the only faction with plans to take over the Hoover Dam for themselves. Way back in the day, the Brotherhood of Steel originally had their sights on the dam to secure power for themselves, but they ultimately chose to secure a solar power plant instead, so those plans never really came to fruition. But it does seem to appear that the Brotherhood will attempt to lay claim to the Hoover Dam at last, seemingly with the help of the Brotherhood's newly beloved Maximus. But you can get one of our beloved Fallout-inspired shirts over at the Heavy Spoilers merch store at heavyspoilers.shop. Specifically, our Ghoul and Nuka pinup shirts. We think that those will look mighty nice on your mighty fine body. But if Marvel is more your thing, feel free to pick up our Emperor shirt inspired by everybody's favorite Bringer of Doom. We've got all that and more over at the Heavy Spoilers merch store, so visit heavyspoilers.shop today. We then see one of the Brotherhood of Steel's airships fly into frame, followed by a shot of one of the Brotherhood of Steel's vertibirds flying under an airship on its way to the Knights of San Fernando chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel, with this vertibird likely carrying Kumail Nanjiani's mysterious character, who we see a little bit later on. The voice of Elder Cleric Quintus, the leader of the Knights of San Fernando, played by actor Michael Christopher, can be heard over these shots before we see him tell the newly knighted Maximus that together they will fulfill their promise to make better this fallen world. And it seems that the way that Elder Cleric Quintus appears to want to achieve that is through a good old-fashioned coup, which we see Kumail Nanjiani's character appear to imply with his arrival.
Sorry to interrupt. I understand we're discussing a civil war.
And with Quintus seeking to reform the Brotherhood of Steel in the way that he sees fit, the San Fernando faction attempting to leave the nationwide Brotherhood of Steel organization is set to trigger a Brotherhood of Steel civil war. And Quintus seeking control of the entire Brotherhood of Steel is very much in line with what he said last season in regards to his feelings that the Brotherhood of Steel had lost its way. And with the Brotherhood now being in possession of last season's cold fusion MacGuffin, Quintus believes that this unlimited energy source will allow him to start a new Brotherhood of his own, one that is strong enough to eliminate the old Brotherhood from the face of the wasteland completely. And as you can imagine, that's not going to fly with the East Coast Brotherhood of Steel at all. And if you played Fallout 4, you already know that the Boston-based Brotherhood of Steel is all about that action. They're not going to take Quintus's betrayal lying down, which is likely why we see a fleet of Brotherhood airships approaching the Knights of San Fernando airfield before we see Scribe Dane saying that the Commonwealth is going to kill them all. But Maximus is quick to reject that notion and will seemingly seek to prevent this inter-Brotherhood war from happening somehow. And when Maximus tells this to Zelia Mendes Jones's Dane character, you can also see the flag of the Knights of San Fernando flying in the background of what appears to be one of their airships, but it's kind of too tough to tell. Then the trailer transitions to the former Brotherhood of Steel squire Thaddeus, played by actor Johnny Pemberton. We can see that Thaddeus's transition into a ghoul is still very much underway after he was tricked by a snake oil salesman of a guy into becoming one in order to heal his messed up foot. Thaddeus appears to be inside of an abandoned Nuka-Cola bottling factory using a child labor force of 27 kids. Possibly for the purpose of removing the caps from all of the sodas in that facility in order to use those caps as currency in the wasteland. We can actually see a tray of those caps to the left of the frame here amongst the kids. And it would kind of be hilarious if Thaddeus ends up becoming a snake oil salesman himself by the end of the season. But anyways, after this, we are brought back to the Vault Tech building in New Vegas, where Hank McClane can be seen holding up one of Vault Tech's mini brain-computer interfaces, which can be used to mind control human beings into subservience. And later on in the trailer, we can see that Lucy will eventually make her way into that New Vegas Vault Tech building herself after being knocked out somehow. And this room that we see Lucy wake up in later on in the trailer has a box of Sugar Bomb cereal on the desk, with Sugar Bomb being a term of endearment that Hank McClane uses for Lucy, so it makes sense that he would leave a box there to give Lucy a hint as to where she is. And we can also see that he has left her a yellow dress in the same style of her white wedding dress from the beginning of Season 1, possibly as a sign of Hank wanting Lucy to join him as part of his growing New Vegas Vault Tech division, and their goal of continuing Robert House's work with mind control. And right after that wake-up shot, we see Lucy walking through the Vault Tech offices as all the employees are smiling and working in perfect unison, implying that Hank has successfully used Vault Tech's mind control chip on a bunch of innocent people in order to rebuild Vault Tech. And there is a chance that some of those mind-controlled people could be the cryogenically frozen people inside of Vault 31 that Norm seems to set free at the end of episode 1. In the trailer, we do see shots of Norm leading a bunch of these Vault 31 people out of the vault and into the wasteland of Santa Monica. So there is a chance that a bunch of these freshly defrosted Vault Tech management figures went straight to Vault Tech New Vegas to work for Hank McClane, not knowing that he was going to brainwash them into subservience with the mind control chip. The trailer then continues with voiceover from the Ghoul and Lucy that teases their character journeys to come. We see Lucy struggle with the question of what she's going to do when she sees her father again, with the Ghoul's response of, "What say you?" implying that she doesn't have the stones to put one right between her father's eyes. And conversely, right after that, Lucy tells the Ghoul that his descent into becoming a ruthless killer with a dark view of humanity and the world at large isn't going to play well with the family that he's desperate to reunite with. That being said, judging by both this trailer and episode 1 as a whole, it definitely feels like we are going to experience a dynamic shift between the two characters. And by the end of the season, when Lucy is forced to confront her father and make the decision to kill him, we will watch the death of Lucy's innocence as she follows the Ghoul's advice and pulls that trigger. And in a similar but opposite fashion, when the Ghoul is inevitably reunited with his wife and or daughter, he will have to finally confront the person that he has morphed into over all those years, both on the outside and on the inside. And I mean, if his wife is confirmed to be alive at some point this season and is with their daughter, I can imagine that the Ghoul would be angry enough to want to eliminate his wife in order to keep his daughter from growing up to be just another heartless Vault Tech pawn like her. I think when the ghoul is confronted with a choice like that, he will probably choose to act like Lucy and be merciful and forgiving. I don't know, I just feel like Lucy is going to end up becoming more like the ghoul, and the ghoul is going to end up becoming a little more like Lucy by the end of the season. But anyways, we then see shots of the ghoul's ex-wife Barb Howard as she is heard saying, "There are worse people out there than me," possibly hinting at Howard confronting his wife about what he heard when he was spying on her secret meeting with all of Vault-Tec's corporate companions. But speaking of that secret meeting, one of the shots that appears right after appears to show Cooper Howard in an elevator with that meeting's RobCo representative, who was played by actor Rafi Silver. Rafi Silver was originally credited as Mr. House in season 1, but this trailer seems to imply that whoever this man is was merely a doppelganger of some sort that the real Mr. House sent in his stead. The real Robert House appears to be played by actor Justin Theroux, and he tells Cooper Howard that he knows of Moldaver's plan to have him killed, which is crazy because how the hell he know that? I mean, there could possibly be a mole in Moldaver's anti-Vault-Tec resistance, or maybe Robert House has just been keeping tabs on Barbara Howard's whole family in order to learn more about exactly who he's getting into the world-ending business with. The room with the big supercomputer that Mr. House is sitting in front of when Cooper Howard enters the room is also straight out of the video games, another example of the show's excellent attention to detail. In the video games, it's revealed that Robert House's real body was being secretly preserved inside of a life support chamber that also connected his brain to the computer systems, allowing him to communicate and coordinate things from the comfort of his life support tube for 200 years. And during the trailer, we also get wide shots of New Vegas, which feature multiple appearances of a few casinos from the Fallout New Vegas video game, including the Gamora Hotel and Casino, the Tops Hotel and Casino right next door, and of course the tower that is the Lucky 38 Hotel and Casino, aka Robert House's tall-ass New Vegas castle. But anyways, moving on, the trailer also shows Robert House's cowboy Securitron robot Victor talking to the ghoul, with Victor also playing a big role in the Fallout New Vegas video game as well. And directly after that, we get a shot of Lucy being escorted inside of a Caesar's Legion camp, right before we see a bunch of Caesar's Legion soldiers saluting a man wearing a golden laurel wreath crown, with that crown figure likely being the Legion's leader, or at least one of them at the very least. We then see what appears to be a flashback to the Battle of Anchorage, a battle that Cooper Howard served in 200 years back when he was a US Marine in some old school T-45 power armor. In the Fallout video game lore, the Battle of Anchorage was a huge conflict during the Sino-American War that was the result of Chinese forces invading Alaska for its oil. American troops battled them for years in freezing conditions, trying to take the city back. And when the US finally won, their victory was used as propaganda to boost morale in the States. But in actuality, it was a pretty damn messy and costly battle with a lot of lives lost and some pretty extreme military experiments involved. But speaking of the People's Liberation Army from China, the implication seems to be that Vault-Tec may have triggered the nuclear apocalypse through the use of Vault-Tec's mind control devices. Because in episode 1 of this season, Lucy and the ghoul discovered that Vault-Tec was attempting to use mind controlled methods like hypnotism in order to get Americans to believe that they were actually part of China's People's Liberation Army. That being the case, I'm guessing that these brainwashed people may have been responsible for that initial attack on Anchorage, Alaska, allowing for Bob Howard and Vault-Tec to tip the first domino in what would become a full-scale nuclear war between both nations. And with society completely wiped out, Vault-Tec would be free to reshape the world in their image. But unfortunately for Vault-Tec, the wasteland is still filled with pesky factions of survivors who also want to rebuild the world the way that they see fit. And that is the very issue that I believe Hank McClane is trying to resolve by finishing Robert House's work of miniaturizing mind control. Because much like how Vault-Tec may have triggered the nuclear apocalypse through the use of mind-controlled agents, I think that Hank McClane is planning on using the same mind-controlled tech to trigger a wasteland-wide war between all the factions that will hopefully cause all the survivors to wipe themselves out, leaving the world completely available for Vault-Tec to conquer. But that's just a theory. But moving on, the trailer then shows us a shot of Maximus holding a laser gun at an off-screen enemy. And another shot later on in the trailer appears to show Maximus in that very same room of marble statues shooting at an unseen target. with this mysterious target presumably being another member of the Brotherhood of Steel, as we can see the Brotherhood of Steel logo in the background of that shot. So it's probably just a moment from the Civil War. But switching things on over to Vault 33, it seems that Overseer Betty may have accidentally started a bit of a mutiny after letting Reg start his own group to talk about feelings and whatnot, as we can see her being accompanied by 2 enforcers covered in riot gear. In episode 1, we saw how that weird-ass couple thought that Reg started that group in order to change some of Vault 33's strict rules. And even though that wasn't originally the case, this later moment in the trailer showing Reg and a bunch of other Vault 33 dwellers dancing and picking out on food without regard for the rules seems to imply that the group has evolved into that, with that sentiment of wanting the rules change evolving into a Vault-wide revolt, especially when tensions get higher due to Vault 33 running out of water. So yeah, things don't seem all that promising for Vault 33, and we might just see the entire Vault massacre themselves by the end of the season. But yeah, after this, we get an exciting shot of a ferocious Deathclaw, a monster that has been a part of the Fallout series since the very first Fallout game in 1997. And I'm guessing that the door that the Deathclaw rips open is likely part of the Gomorrah Hotel and Casino, as we can see advertisements for Gomorrah's Brimstone Bar and Nightclub all around the entrance. Then, after we see a freed Norm using a radio to attempt to communicate with his father over at Vault-Tec, we are greeted with the sight of a giant crab-like Mirelurk, another classic Fallout creature. A later shot from the trailer appears to show Lucy going at it with this creepy-ass monster, which should be fun to see. But slightly before that, we get a shot of the T-60 power armor from the start of the trailer shooting at a mysterious Securitron in a heated battle. Then eventually, the trailer appears to tease the return of actor John Daly's mysterious snake oil salesman character as he makes his way to New Vegas with some pep in his step to find more suckers to swindle with his magic drugs, much like he did with poor Thaddeus. And then right after that, we get a badass shot of the ghoul being yeeted out of a window of the Atomic Wrangler Casino in the Freeside district of New Vegas. Yet another iconic location from Fallout New Vegas. And this is followed by a shot of an unmasked Caesar's Legion member played by actor Macaulay Culkin as he stabs one of his comrades in the chest. And not much is known about this particular character yet, but all we do know is that he's playing a quote, crazy genius type character, so I'm interested to see if he ends up being the Julius Caesar of the Caesar's Legion in this season. Then, after we watch Maximus and a person with power armor run away from the chaos of what appears to be the Brotherhood of Steel Civil War, the trailer ends with Lucy McLean approaching a room in Hank's Vault-Tec offices that is labeled Simulation. And while I'm not exactly sure what simulation is supposed to mean in this context, we can see the inside of the room is furnished to look like the inside of one of the many living quarters inside of Lucy's Vault 33. So this could be her father's way of attempting to start over with his daughter by trying to convince her that she can have a normal life with him. However, the simulation room could also point to the simulation pods from Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. In those games, the player could enter one of these simulation pods called Visiontrons or Tranquility Loungers in order to be whisked away into a super realistic virtual reality space. So there's a possibility that Hank McClane could have shoved his daughter inside of one of these machines to trap her there forever, but only time will tell. But anyways, that is it for this breakdown for the upcoming episodes of Fallout Season 2. What are you looking forward to the most this season? Let us know in the comment section down below. But like always, you guys can follow me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, wherever I am on the internet, but most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button and maybe even hitting that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. But like always, I've been MT, you guys have been amazing, and I'll see you Vault Dwellers later. Peace.